I wouldn't be with you if you weren't the boss's daughter. Such a bore. He said that and poured beer all over my head. The more he drank, the more insults kept coming. I couldn't believe what was happening and couldn't say anything back. Sorry to keep you waiting. But his face changed when he heard the voice behind me. Without looking back, I got into the car as prompted. My name is Mia, a company CEO's daughter. I've always been treated like someone to be handled with care. I got fed up with adults who would suddenly change their attitude when they see my father's influence behind me. I was always a quiet kid who preferred being alone, but as I grew older, I started trying to blend into my surroundings. I tried my best to avoid getting unwanted attention. Even the friends I made grew distant when they learned about my father's job. I used to resent my father's position, but that changed when I started studying business in university. Throughout university, I began to understand how difficult it is to achieve consistent, long-term success like my father. I became interested in my father's company. Learning about my father's passion and thoughts about the company only deepened my interest and desire to learn more. Mia has good grades and seems to have a knack for business. Maybe she could take over the company someday. That's what my father said. I thought, in that case, I'd like to create a company culture where employees can be friends and can share their thoughts. Having felt lonely as a child, I longed for an environment where titles and positions didn't matter, and everyone could speak freely. It would be wonderful to shape the company that way when I become the CEO. The downtown area is crowded with people in the evening. I check the time, seeing it's 6:50 p.m., I feel relieved. I always wanted to arrive earlier when meeting up with Sam. I took out a small hand mirror and fixed my hair. I also checked my curly hairstyle and the position of my light blue hair clip. As I tossed the hand mirror back into my handbag, I spotted Sam in a suit, weaving through the crowd. I waved back at him, who was smiling at me. The place we entered is our usual spot. We ordered some snacks and some draft beer, then made a toast. I loved spending Friday nights in a casual place, chatting about work and other trivial things. Sam and I started dating during our senior year of university, and it's almost been 2 years now. We first got to know each other because we attended the same seminar. Sam noticed me, the quiet one who tried to stay in the background, and reached out to me. Sam is great at conversation and subtly lifts the mood around him. I'm lucky to be with him. The planning department at the headquarters is tough. There's a lot of overtime, but it's rewarding, so I can keep going. Mia, how long are you going to stay working at the factory? If you get transferred to headquarters, we could have lunch together. After graduating university, I asked my father, the CEO, to let me work at the factory. I had a strong desire to understand how operations work. I'd love to have lunch with you, Sam, but I like the factory work, and it suits me. Are you sure? I think you'd look better working at the headquarters in a nice dress instead of overalls. Sam looked at me, trying to gauge my reaction. That's not true. I feel comfortable in my overalls. Sam, can we order more food? I'm really hungry. I don't know, it's a strange feeling. I managed to dodge it, but lately, it seems like Sam wants to say something. Could he have found out that I'm the CEO's daughter? Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind. It made me nervous. Memories of close friends treating me differently after finding out I was the CEO's daughter resurfaced. I didn't want to go through that again. I could never tell Sam that I'm the CEO's daughter, and he absolutely must not find out. Rocked by the nearly empty train, I gazed out the window. Enjoying the scenery through the glass is part of my daily commute routine. It's a sunny Monday. As the train moves, the view changes from a landscape of gray buildings to one filled with lush greenery. After crossing a particularly large river, the train will soon arrive at my station. The river's surface sparkles, reflecting a vibrant blue. I watched out of the corner of my eye as an elderly man and his puppy grew smaller while crossing the bridge. Good morning, Mia. You're early. A colleague called out to me as I exited the station gates. Good morning. I'm always here at this time on Mondays. That's Chris, he's 2 years older than me. He's the friendly person who spoke to me on my first day, and he's been a great help ever since. We chatted about small things as we go to work in the factory. After getting ready and taking my station, the bell rings and the day's work starts. The day was supposed to begin like any other, with the usual tasks. But then, an unexpected incident occurred. It was just before the afternoon shift started after lunch. At that moment, my father, the CEO, happened to be visiting for an inspection. As I was coming out of the break room, I bumped into my father, and he asked me to pass a message to my mom, which was convenient. Apparently, he had forgotten his phone at home. I could send it from my computer, but it's a hassle, so I'm glad I ran into you, my father said with a smile. After seeing my father off as he headed to the workstations, I turned around and, to my surprise, there was Chris. He was peeking out from a conference room door, which was half open. "Wait, Mia, you're the CEO's daughter?" "Oh no." Chris heard that. I panicked and tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came to mind. Regret for carelessly chatting with my father began to make me anxious. From now on, Chris will probably change his attitude towards me. The whole factory might find out, and people might start keeping their distance from me. As all these thoughts swirled in my mind, leaving me speechless, Chris said, "In that case, Mia, there's something I'd like your help with. There are a lot of things I'd like to see changed around here. Can you tell the CEO?" I was puzzled by Chris's usual tone, but I became more interested in what he was saying. "What kind of changes are you talking about?" When I asked, Chris gave me a brief explanation. I wanted to know more, but it was almost time to start work. We decided to discuss the details after work, and then we both returned to our workstations. We both hurried not to be late and get unwanted attention. Luckily, Chris didn't change his attitude even after finding out I was the CEO's daughter. In fact, he acted like it was no big deal at all. I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders as I climbed the stairs to my workstation. Now, I'm sitting across from Chris at a fast food place near the train station. Our earlier conversation had surprisingly picked up right where it left off. Simply put, Chris wanted to give more decision-making power to the field workers. Under the current system, any changes to regulations require approval from headquarters. Even for the smallest changes, approval is needed, and after a request is made, headquarters sends someone for an inspection. After that, it takes time to get final approval. By the time approval comes through, situations have often changed already, making the request unnecessary, but canceling the request takes extra effort. Chris said this while finishing his double cheeseburger and crumpling the wrapper. "So, Mia, could you ask the CEO?" "Just kidding. But seriously, I wish there was something we could do." I hesitated, unsure if this was something I could even ask my father about. "You're right, it might be hard to ask the CEO, but it does seem like the system needs to change. Right?" That's what I thought. Let's take the first step. We should document all the past cases and submit them. Then we can present our suggestions and have headquarters consider them. I wonder if that would really work. I started convincing the hesitant Chris. "Let's give it a try." "Well, just talking about it won't change anything, right?" From the next day, we started gathering information from around the factory, involving our supervisor as well. It was tough to work on it between our daily tasks, but after months of steady effort, we finally completed the documents. We handed them to our supervisor in time for the upcoming general meeting at headquarters, and I felt relieved. As I was taking a break, drinking soda, a colleague approached me. "I heard the documents are done." "Good job." Since we had gone around to all the departments to gather information, everyone knew about it. We finally finished it. I hope it leads to some changes. I'm sure it will. But I'm really impressed by your initiative, Mia. You really are the CEO's daughter, after all. Wait, how did you know about that? Sorry, I found out from Chris. I was curious about why you decided to take action. Don't worry, I'm the only one who knows. I see. I felt a bit conflicted, but I believed what my colleague said. It would be great if you became the CEO, Mia. You're so diligent and hardworking, and you really went all out for the factory this time. There's no way I could be the CEO. I laughed it off, and my colleague laughed along, saying, "You really think so?" This person, smiling with a lot of wrinkles, has been working at the factory for over 20 years. Just like Chris, he treated me the same as always. There was a constant calmness and cheerfulness. A few months later, our supervisor returned from the general meeting. He requested everyone to gather. The supervisor addressed the employees who had gathered, asking what was going on. There's been a change in some of the authority held by the field workers. The employees started buzzing with excitement upon hearing those words. I couldn't help but look for Chris. He was standing on the edge of the crowd, noticed my gaze, and responded with a fist pump. Not all of our requests were granted, but it seemed like nearly half have been approved. That day, everyone came up to me one by one, and I felt genuinely happy. The sense of accomplishment and renewed motivation made my days fulfilling. Then one day, I was summoned to the headquarters by my father. I wondered why he would call me in like this as I left my afternoon duties to meet him in headquarters. When I entered the CEO's office, my father first praised me for the success of the recent project. I haven't told him anything, but it seemed he had already looked into the situation. Apparently, the company's numbers had improved significantly, and after laughing heartily, my father turned serious and said, "Mia, you have a talent for management and the energy to match. How about seriously starting to take over as CEO?" Hearing my father's words, I realized I wanted to give it a try. Listening to feedback and making improvements, creating a workplace where employees are more engaged and motivated. As CEO, I could make changes on a larger scale, creating a more efficient and comfortable work environment. Of course, the responsibility would be heavier. My mind was almost made up, but I told him I needed time to think it over and went home that day. Alone in my room, I questioned myself. Can I really do this? Can I really handle the responsibility? That night, I had trouble falling asleep. The next morning, despite being sleep deprived, I went to visit my father at headquarters with a clear mind. About what we discussed yesterday, I'd really like to take on the challenge. Please let me do it. Although a bit nervous, I accepted everything sincerely. My father said, "That's great, thank you," and then started discussing the upcoming schedule. "Wow, Mia, you're really going to become the CEO?" "Chris, lower your voice." Chris and I were the only ones in the break room during lunch. I thought it was the right moment, so I told him about becoming the CEO. Sorry. But I can't believe you're actually going to be the CEO. Everyone's going to be so surprised. That's the thing. I think I'll be transferred to headquarters soon, but I'm struggling with how to explain it to everyone. Why not just tell them the truth? I'm a little scared to tell them I'm the CEO's daughter. I finally opened up about my past. How close friends grew distant, how hurt I was by the sudden change of attitude, and how I became a loner during my childhood. Chris listened to my story sincerely and said, "There might be some people who can't treat you the same way, that's true. But everyone knows how hard you've worked. I think they trust you. And you might be surprised at how many people won't change their attitude at all." Could that be true? When Chris said it, I started to believe it, but my experience tells me otherwise. In the end, I only gave a vague response. After finishing work, on my way home, I checked my phone and found a message from Alex. I hadn't seen Alex in a while. Just when I thought I had some free time after being busy preparing documents for headquarters, Alex entered his own busy season. It's not just the people at the factory, I also have to think about Alex. As the train sways, I let out a sigh. Can I really tell him the truth about myself? What will happen if I tell him? After some time, the date of my transfer to headquarters was set. In a few weeks, I'll be leaving the factory. Unable to decide how to tell everyone, I found myself stopping by the archive room. The dusty room where various documents are stored. I opened one of the cardboard boxes lined up near the entrance and took out a thick bundle tied with a black string. They were my work journals from over the years. As I looked through the journals, starting with my first day, forgotten memories began to resurface. I remembered being a clueless newbie, how patiently I was taught, how the tenured employees encouraged me as I learned the ropes, and how someone bought me coffee when I was down after making a mistake. As I continued to read through the journals, my resolve solidified. It's not about whether I'll be accepted or not. I decided to tell the truth with gratitude and sincerity for everything everyone has done for me. With that decision made, I left the archive room. It was decided that I would inform my colleagues about my transfer during Monday's morning meeting. Prompted by my supervisor, I stepped forward and took the center. As my coworkers waited, wondering what I was going to say, Chris and a few colleagues who knew the situation watched from the back of the group. I told everyone that I was the CEO's daughter and that I would be taking over the company, expressing my gratitude. Surprisingly, the words came out smoothly, as if I had never been worried. I was surprised at myself as I looked around to see everyone's reactions. They seemed shocked, but Chris started clapping and congratulating me, and others quickly followed. The atmosphere softened, and I felt relieved. I felt refreshed as I received their words of encouragement. A few days later, everyone invited me out for drinks. We are on our way to a bar with a large group, like a year-end party, to celebrate my appointment as CEO. I was so happy that so many people came that I felt like crying. It made me feel confident that I was truly being accepted. Since it was a celebration, they had reserved a different place than usual, and we all got on the train. After about 15 minutes, we got off and arrived at a popular bar known for its delicious seafood side dishes. We chatted excitedly about all sorts of things, and as the drinks flowed, a light and happy feeling took over. After a while, I checked the time and realized nearly 2 hours had already passed. I decided to go to the restroom to sober up a bit. The bar got crowded at 8 p.m., and every seat was taken. As I looked around, curious about the new place, a familiar voice suddenly caught my ear. I couldn't help but focus on it. The voice seemed to be insulting someone in particular. Despite wanting to leave immediately, my body moved toward the table where the voice was coming from. It felt like my body wasn't my own, a strange sensation. She tried to keep it a secret, but everyone in the seminar knew. I wouldn't be with her if she wasn't the CEO's daughter. Such a Borel. At a table with 4 men in suits, just as I suspected, was Sam. She works at the factory, so is she really the CEO's daughter? She prefers wearing overalls, so I don't even feel like taking her to a nice place. Maybe if she invited me to her mansion, I'd make more of an effort. I couldn't process the words coming from that familiar voice I once loved. Not too long, Sam noticed me standing there. He seemed pretty drunk, his eyes seemed cloudy. His words, full of resentment and bitterness towards me, it paralyzed me. Do you think you have any value? The only thing you've got is the title of being the CEO's daughter. When Sam glared at me, I wondered if he even realized I was actually standing there. He staggered walking towards me, unsteady on his feet. Without warning, he raised his glass in his right hand and poured beer all over me. Beer drenched all over my hair and face. Droplets dripped down, soaking the floor. I wasted years of being with you. Let's break up. I'm done with you. I could only nod at Sam shouting. Quietly, I moved away from him and, with my face still dripping with beer, I told my colleagues I was leaving early. Fortunately, everyone was too tipsy to notice or care. As I stepped outside, the cool night, a gentle breeze brushed my cheeks. The temperature of the spilt beer in my hair dropped, and the chill seeped into my scalp, making me feel like I might freeze. I couldn't bring myself to take the train in this state, so I reluctantly called for a car. When I was set to become CEO, my father provided me with a company car. The driver assigned to me has known me since I was a child, and the car feels familiar. I just wanted to sink into the familiar seat and relax, so I watched the traffic on the highway as I waited. Just then, the bar door opened, and someone stepped out. You're still here. Looking all pathetic. You're really a sight, aren't you? He was being held up by some of his friends, probably coworkers, as he stumbled around. My heart was shattered. I couldn't take any more of Sam's rudeness. How cruel and violent his words were. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, ma'am. I heard a voice behind me. Sam was staring at me, wide-eyed. Please, this way, ma'am. I was guided to the back seat, and I started walking toward it. Wait a minute. I was just kidding earlier. You should have told me you're the new CEO. Forget what I said earlier, okay? I glanced over my shoulder at Sam, who was now desperately pleading. I felt nothing. If anything, there was a faint sense of disgust. The CEO is tired, stop bothering her and leave her alone, please. After making sure I was seated, the driver closed the door. As the car started moving, my composure crumbled. Tears kept flowing, dripping from my chin onto my lap. What did I see in him? How could he have been like that? After crying for a while, I started to calm down and suddenly thought, maybe it was my fault. Trying to be in a relationship without showing my true self was impossible from the start. Thinking that made me feel a bit better. I wiped my tears with a handkerchief and looked out the window. Clouds drifting across the starry sky. It felt like being at the bottom of the sea. A comforting sensation, like drifting on gentle waves. I thought about my colleagues at the factory. And then about Chris. Being accepted for who you are is such a comforting feeling. I rubbed my swollen, tear-filled eyes and then fell asleep. A year and a half has passed since I became CEO. Even after transferring to headquarters, whenever I felt nostalgic, I would visit the factory under the guise of an inspection. Today, I've brought some treats with me as I visit again. Even though you say it's tough, you handle everything just fine, Mia. I really respect that. Not at all, I'm always getting help from everyone. As I laid out the snacks I brought, I couldn't help but smile. Even after becoming CEO, my colleagues at the factory still call me Mia. It feels a bit like coming home. As I was basking in happiness, Chris started talking to me. So, where should we go for our honeymoon? Suddenly hearing something so personal, I looked around in surprise. It seemed the colleagues who had been chatting earlier had returned to their posts. Hey, be quiet. We haven't announced it yet. After my transfer, as I kept coming to the factory, we got closer and eventually started dating. Finally, we got engaged last month. Don't worry, I made sure no one was around. So, where do you want to go? Overseas? I'd like to go to the beach. The words came out before I even thought about it. I'm not sure why, but I've always thought that if I were to go with Chris, it had to be the beach. If it's the ocean, maybe we could go to an island. I'll look into it, Chris said with a smile. I'm really looking forward to it. What color will the sea be as I sit on the beach with Chris, under the bright light? Just imagining it made my heart race, and a smile spread across my face.